So this is a model for some of you have seen already the NLP communication model, and this is kind of a different version from that. And it really explains how the ego works. So how we filter reality through the mind. So for example, here on the left-hand side, you see an external event. An external event can be anything from being on a course right now to a dog passing by, walking by, a car driving by, two people talking to each other, ordering a coffee, really anything that can happen in the world, anything that you can see in the world. That then gets filtered through the filters of mind. These are, for example, memories, language, like Dan have already mentioned, values that you might hold as important, certain beliefs. The way you code time, so the way you perceive time, that's where then productivity, things like that come in, like we talked about earlier this evening. What does that even mean, productivity? When we say that, what do we mean by that? It's all filtered through these filters of mind. And in these filters also sit the 60 meta programs. And 60 meta programs are thinking patterns. So it's a particular way of thinking. And they always operate on a spectrum. So it's a duality. Later in the course, we're going to go into Enneagram typologies. And for each Enneagram type, there are about 5 to 7 meta programs that sort of cluster together. And that's what makes it a typology. So that's how we can recognize a typology. It's a cluster of meta programs. And they all sit in those filters of mind there.
And your Enneagram is your personality type.
Yeah. Then from there, we go into the thinking. So you can see thinking there. And this is really anything that happens in mind in terms of thought processes. You can see again the storyteller, the ego constructing. So the thinking can be, I feel frustrated or excited, or I feel overwhelmed or stressed. I really like that, or I really don't like that. Just anything that you tell yourself during the day, that's all being noticed there in the thinking mind there. Those narratives can be very subtle. There might be some narratives that you can see that are quite objective, so you can actually watch them and observe them, but there might be some narratives that you're actually subjective to, so you don't really see them playing out. It's just kind of happening. So that's kind of what Bridget was pointing to before. It's an habitual way of being, right? It's a habit. And it can happen very unconsciously as well. Then you see there underneath the thinking, you see the feeling. And feeling, we can really simply explain as a contraction in the body, so tightness, or an expansion, an openness. And the reason that we have a loop there between thinking and feeling is because that's how that mechanism works. So we think about our feeling and we feel about our thinking, and we think about our feeling and think about our thinking and feel about our feeling, and so on. And that's how we just bounce back and forward within our own ego construct, in a sense. So we might often, what people also do, I feel angry. Well, angry is not a feeling, anger is a thinking. How do you know to call that particular energy in the feeling center, which is simply energy in motion? When people say emotion, energy in motion, moving energy through the body, similar to how energy is moving through a tree, or to a flower, or through the ocean, whatever it is. But we then have certain opinions and ideas about those energies, and we may like them or not like them. And that's how we then experience certain, what we call emotions. And the big loop with this is that if we start to suppress, like we don't want to feel certain feelings, or we don't want to think this particular thought, that's when they become more, right? So really the offer is to start seeing this dynamic playing out. Maybe through just observing this model, there's already more awareness and more objectivity to what's happening. Just by seeing this model, just by knowing this cognitively as an understanding, and now start to play around with it in your day-to-day life. And really the offer is to observe, nothing to change. because the very act of wanting to change that is in that same bind. And you can't solve the problem from the level that it is created. So we're going to have better feeling about our thinking, and now we're going to have better thinking about our same stuff, right? Still playing in that same bind. So really, the first step is to observe. To observe it as a processing unit playing out, moment to moment, creating a sense of I'm someone in the world.